Bonjour, Tansegia.
Hey, how are ya?
It's a smudge for your thoughts.
With cohesive.
That's me. And Zosha.
I'm just kidding. Welcome to today's episode where we talk to Nalakwsis.
Yeah, so we're talking to this wonderful person about their culture and where they come from, and they tell us about different things that they believe and where their inspiration comes from for their art.
Yeah.
And it's a wonderful episode
A
because
lot of information you get.
because you're learning so much, and they have an interesting perspective on decolonizing one's own perspective of what success is.
Yeah.
So just listen for this.
That's
And
right.
there's not much else to say right now. So just
All
listen.
right. Well, enjoy the episode. See ya on the other side. So we'll start with the first question. Just introduce yourself. What is your name? Where you're from? And how do you identify yourself?
All right. Hi, my name is Nalakwsis. I'm from Whapmagoostui, Quebec. It's a very small community way up north in Quebec. It's the only community that is both Cree and Inuit. So we are one community, but we have two for the municipality for the Inuit, and we have the band for the Crees. And I'm 23 years old. I'm Cree. I'm only Cree.
Mm-hmm.
I've lived here for a while now. I used to live in the city, but I decided that it would be better for me to move back to my community, and I've been here for almost 7 years now. Well, back for 7 years.
Okay.
So I do all my artwork, everything from home in my community.
Awesome. And now that you mentioned your artwork, I guess before we get into, talking about all of that, do you want to, so that the audience can look you up and make sure we're getting, everyone is able to check you out. I know you sell some stuff on Redbubble, and then, a lot of your artwork is on your Instagram. Did you want to tell everyone what your Instagram and Redbubble account is?
Yeah. On Redbubble, I only sell my artwork. So my Redbubble is my art name, which is Nalakwsis, and my Instagram is also. Everything you can find me is using my name, Nalakwsis.
Okay, perfect. And
And
then
can you spell that out for us?
Yeah. Nalakwsis.
Cool. And what does that mean?
Nalakwsis is my second name, my middle name. It's
Cool.
Abenaki for it means my little star.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It's a name that my grandmother gave me because my grandmother is Abenaki. So it's a name that I've had since I was born.
Oh, beautiful.
So I decided that to use that as my art tag name.
Nice. I love that. And I also, Zosha is not my real name either, but it's my Polish name. And I was named after my great grandmother, and she was from Poland, and her name was Zosha, or was, but then she changed it when she came over to Americanize herself and change it to Sophia, and that's what I was named after, Sophia. But I like to go by Zosha sometimes, and that's what my parents call me a lot. So I get totally get that, using that, the thing that more connects to you.
I grew up with my Cree culture and Cree language, and my Cree name, I do have a Cree name, but it's very long.
Oh, okay.
But I also feel very connected to my Abenaki roots. I'm very close to my grandmother, and she taught me a lot. She moved up here with my grandfather when she was very young, so she learned a lot of the Cree the Cree way of life and all the traditional stuff. So I learned everything from her.
Okay.
And she like all the Cree traditional knowledge that I have about like being out on the land or just like spirituality too is from her. So I felt like a very deep connection to my Abenaki name. So I thought, like, because I try to incorporate a lot of my culture into my artwork and this like the knowledge that I have that is like appropriate for me to share into my artwork. So like using my Abenaki name was like this. I just knew right away that that's what I wanted to use.
Cool. And I have a couple of questions. Sorry, Tony, I'm like taking over. But I just have that brings up a really good kind of topic of when you kind of mentioned that the artwork that you are able to share that's appropriate for you to share like on social media and stuff. And could you kind of talk a little bit about that? Because I know Tony, like we kind of have conversations about what's appropriate for us to share on our podcast or what, that kind of stuff, like Trickster stories he doesn't tell all year round. And could you kind of comment on that?
Yeah. So like I don't believe I have a huge amount of knowledge of my culture. Like even if both my from my grandfather's side and my biological father's side, like I do learn a lot, but I did grow up in the city for a long time because it was just during that time. Like I went to elementary. I did go to elementary school and I went to high school, a little bit of high school, and then I decided to move back. So I did learn a lot. I mean, I forgot a lot of things when I moved to the city. So when I moved back, there was a lot of things that I had to relearn. And it wasn't the fault of my parents. It was just a time in our life where we had to move to the city. And so we were there for a long time. And then we decided it would be better. We were kind of feeling like, how to say that, like culture shock, I guess.
Yeah.
And feeling very like distant, and well, that's how I felt. So I moved back first, and then my family followed me back, and we all have been here since. So since then, like art has always been a part of my life. My mother is an acrylic painter, and my stepfather, who I've known who's been in my life since I was 4, is a musician. So art has always been like around me, and I've grown up with it. That's like the only thing that they've ever done is my mother painting and my father being a musician. So I learned a lot about art from them. And then when we moved back here, I connected back to my culture and to just like, I was very interested in the legends because I didn't grow up with them, so they were very new to me. And my grandfather, who I am also close to too, he has started teaching us a little bit about, more about like how it was way back when, and like Whapmagoostui hasn't been around for that long. Like, I mean, it's been here, but the development of like people living here and it being like an actual town, because it used to be a gathering place.
Oh,
like it hasn't been here for that long. So his like knowledge and his stories and all that really influenced me and really like inspired me. And when I moved back here, I would ask a lot of questions because I didn't know, why do we do this? Why that? And I think some people are like, just, do it. I was like, no, you have to tell me. You have to tell me why.
Yeah.
I need to know why.
Yeah.
So I did ask a lot of questions, and luckily the high school here is actually very, it's part of the Cree school board. So there's Cree culture class and Cree language class. So I would ask my teachers too about it. And, it was very inspiring. And I knew that my artwork would be driven from my culture, the Cree legends, the stories and everything, because I was very into all that storytelling stuff. And there are things that, that I would never, that I could show online, but I would never sell.
Yeah, I
And I
gotcha.
think that's just, and for me, it's because like that, I would not want to profit off of something that's
So much
what's
meaning.
not even mine to sell.
Yeah, I
Because
gotcha.
the stories are passed down. They're also not my stories.
Yeah.
And even if they were my grandfather's stories, I would not want to reproduce to sell.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I did, like I would have to go through a very like long process of trying to ask for permission.
Yeah,
Mhm.
from like elders
And yeah, and also that for me, I don't want to give instructions for other folk to be like, oh well, I can do this too, because a lot of the
yeah.
stories are very spiritual, or they're very like they're lessons, or they're well, they're very instructional, and but they are lessons, like life lessons.
Yeah.
So like to preserve the culture is, I would share it among like my people, but I wouldn't want anybody else to be like, okay, I'm going to take inspiration from this and recreate it.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of so like when I say about like anything that I share that is appropriate, I always only share stuff that I feel is okay or that I've gotten permission from it.
Gotcha.
So stories that I like tell or that I create, they're all like inspired by, but they're not a direct like, they're not the direct story like from the original stories.
Gotcha.
So I never want to make anything that is too much info that folks that are non-Cree, non-Indigenous could take.
Yeah, I completely understand that. Thank you for like explaining all that, because that is very important for non-Indigenous people to understand. Like the reasons why certain things are sacred or need to be preserved and not just shared with everyone and profited off of and taken and appropriated and stuff. So thank you for explaining that. I keep wanting to say things, but I'm gonna let Tony or Kihiasis, sorry, have if you have any questions or comments, or if you wanted to.
So yeah, you brought up a lot of points and things that I was taught growing up as well. I mean, I'm Chippewa Cree, so I do have a little bit of two different sides. Not only learning like the Cree side, but I know the Ojibwe side. And that's important to know about how to distribute this knowledge and how to keep it safe. And you brought up some really, really good points, because there are people out there that do take advantage and take that traditional knowledge and use it in a not so good way. So you did talk about this, but what do you do for a living, and
or passion?
Your passions? I mean, you're selling your art. Is that what you primarily do?
Yeah, my art is my main. I haven't. I don't do anything else. Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, I just like art is my main thing.
Yeah.
I do
awesome.
a lot of stuff.
That is awesome.
I'm an illustrator. I'm a bead artist, and I'm also a photographer.
Oh,
so
cool.
I do that all in my community. I offer photography services.
Awesome.
And mostly portrait work.
Okay.
And I with beadwork, that's what I do, and I take a lot of contract work for illustrating. So like that's what after high school I I tried going to college. I tried all that, and I was like, I can't do this. It's not for me. But college, I had to leave my community, go back to the city, and I really don't like the city. So I didn't finish college. So when I came back, I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna do this, and I did.
Nice. Yeah, sometimes you just have to go for something you're passionate about and not worry about like what if I don't make enough or whatever. Like yeah, I like that. Just going for it. And
well, that's why I took on 3 things.
Yeah.
3 passions.
Yeah. If you don't like this, you'll maybe like this. If you don't like that, maybe you'll like this. No, I love your art so much. I mean, obviously that's what drew me to ask you to drew us to ask you out to be on the podcast. So I guess if you want to talk about the different art that you do, like Soup's Adventures, is that kind of what you're talking about as based on the Cree legends?
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes. Yeah. Well, the artwork that I do, like I said, it's very inspired by the Cree legends, but it will never be like direct.
Yeah.
Like I'll just hint at it or whatever. Like very general summary of the legend. Like I won't put details into it. So, but me as an artist, I just feel more comfortable getting inspiration from it to create something that is original.
Mm-hmm.
Like that for me, that's my workflow. That's how I feel better doing it too, like for myself. So like Soup's Adventures was something that I just, it was kind of, I had this idea for like something like that could also be, because I have younger siblings too who I'm very close to.
Mm-hmm.
And they always say like I have so much to, because I talk a lot, and I'm always like, oh, I have this idea, and then I tell them all my ideas, and they're like, oh, you should do this. So so I created Soup's Adventures, and there is no real plan, but I just know that it will be inspired by Cree culture and Cree language and just like Cree values in general. So like everything that here us Cree live by. So like being humble, humility, love, and like there's many more.
Yeah.
And so like I decided, that's what Soup is gonna be. That's just what they're gonna be. And so I don't really have a plan for it, but I know that that's what it's gonna be. And for my workflow is I never have a real plan for anything. I just let it go where it wants to go.
Mm-hmm.
So like any artwork that I've had, like I do have a plan for it at first, but it's never what I think it's going to be.
Yeah, never.
So it always just goes, yeah. So a lot of my work is just a feeling. So how I feel about it, how it's going to go, which way it's going to go. So a lot of my artwork but it always ends up being in the same, like for Cree values and for how like Cree legends and Cree stories, because I have such a huge connection to it, and I feel so like how do you say it? Like I just have a very big connection to it,
it's like
and
a part
that's
of
where
you.
all my and that's where all my inspiration comes from, and it just feels true to me. That is where it would come from. And also like growing up, like I watched a lot of movies, and I watched a lot of TV shows, and I watched a lot of cartoons, and then I'm also close with my younger siblings who like I'd have to watch TV with them, all that kind of stuff. And there's a lot of like they would connect with a lot of shows or TV shows or movies. And then they would see, like, oh, I wish there was something like, like our stories or like being Cree. And I told them, like, you know what? Yeah, me too. I would watch a lot of shows, and it was really great that there was some representations for other cultures too, but there was nothing like for Cree really. Like even for like the shows that are like indigenous, like it's not from here, for the Cree Nation in Quebec. Like it because even though a lot of the stories are similar, a lot of the things that we do is different from Cree's, like on the other side of the bay. So a lot of stories are different, and so I wanted to be able to create something for them that that other Cree kids on this side of the bay can see and be like, and connect with, to be like, you know what, that's so right, that's me. My grandmother talked about that. Or like, oh, like all our stories and legends too.
Yeah.
So like, I always have that in mind when I create artwork that is like indigenous inspired or Cree inspired, I should say. Is that I think about my younger siblings, or like what my children, when I have children, what they'll be able to watch or to be able to see on TV, that is a good representation too of us on this side.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, and that's something that you brought up. it's really important to make the point that not even within like tribes, like I was
Mhm.
saying, I am Cree, but we're different than the Crees up north. We're the southernmost Cree, and we have different
Mhm.
dialect, we have different teachings, different stories as well, and the similar themes and similar things, but not everything is the same, and that's something that a lot of non-indigenous people, non-native people don't understand, is that even within tribes we're different. I mean, even within families we're
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm glad that you brought up, that you're
Mhm.
trying to represent your Cree culture and
Mhm.
have other Crees get uh, inspired by this and being like, oh yeah, that's awesome. That's out there. Then I really respect you for doing the work that you're doing, and I love that.
Yeah. It is very different. Like there's even though I we have connections, like my family has connections just through like friendships and ceremonial stuff from from different indigenous folk too, and it is very different. Like they'll tell us one thing and we'll be like, but on this like for us and like our the knowledge that has been passed down, what's amazing is that there are similarities, but it's different. Like
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
for the certain legends, like for the certain like spirits or spiritual stuff, or the characters in these legends, they might actually be like, I don't want to say evil, but like evil somewhere else. But to here, we're like, oh no, that's not our stories.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Like one
Yeah.
example I can say that I've had experience with it about somebody telling me like they're evil is the little people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Like I've heard stories like when you see them, it's well, I don't know
Bad.
if this is super accurate, but that it's not the same. But over here, our stories of the little people are very different. But it's probably because they're also not even the same. But
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
like that's like an example of like what is different
Yeah.
Yeah.
too. Like a lot of things are different.
Yeah.
But I believe that we all hold the same values.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just that a lot of the details are different.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. I was told to respect the little people and
Not really talk
um
Mhm.
about them,
yeah,
right?
don't really talk about them, but
Mm.
definitely respect them, and if you need help with something, you could ask them for help. But
Yeah.
they're not evil. They're not necessarily good.
Mhm.
They're just kind of beings that are out there. That just like
Right.
minotaurs and centaurs, they have their purpose, and they're
Mhm.
out there to. And if we need their help, uh, they'll show themselves. And that
Yeah.
was something that I found out whenever I went to Vietnam, that they have little people over there as well, and they hold high respect to their little people
Yep.
over there. So I mean, all
Mhm.
over the world,
And like
uh,
leprechauns,
yeah,
like Legend of Leprechauns.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. I mean, that's like the same. I mean, it's
it
like,
it
yeah.
is similar stories, and
Yeah, it's
like
very similar. Like for the little people over here, we don't. I don't. Well, I've never heard anybody say that it's a bad sign when you see them or anything. Is
Oh,
that
mhm,
okay.
you have to give them offerings if you see them, but it's
mhm.
nothing bad. And they like to hang around at night, especially if children are outside
Oh
at
yeah,
night. And they're kind of like guardians. Like they take care because well, they're very energetic. They love candy. They love sweet stuff and shiny things. So like when I heard the other stories of people like the little people, they're evil, they're really mischievous or whatever, I was like,
Uh-huh.
oh, but over here
They-
they might not even be the same thing, but we have the same name for them,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
which I thought was very interesting. So like telling stories and I always say like it's Cree, but it's Cree from where I'm from
Yeah.
yeah,
with the Cree Nation over here in the CNIC Cree Nation, like under that. Um, it's all our stories are different, but also like we were very nomadic people, so the stories differ from like family to family and even teachings.
yeah,
Like the
definitely.
stuff that we might traditionally do that is like when we hunt, it could be very different from another family too. So it's to like categorize like indigenous people as just one and being like, well, all indigenous people have this.
Yeah.
I like will agree to a certain extent, I guess, but I will disagree because we're on our land, but it's all different.
Yeah.
Like we all have different teachings, different lessons, different everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like saying like Americans are the same as Canadians or something like that. Like we have completely different presidents. Like we have like
Yeah.
we're same in certain respects, but
it's very different.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly. Like that's a really important thing to state, that all like all different tribes and bands are different and family.
So you've touched on like the tribal stuff a lot, but what does it mean to you to be Cree?
That's one of our questions.
What it means for me to be Cree?
Yeah.
Well, for me, I follow a lot of I am very for the land. So, and for us Cree, like it's Cree, but we're called it's Eeyou Istchee, which is Eeyou translates to like the people, the people's land, Eeyou Istchee.
Okay.
So it's very like for me, I'm very for the land. Everything is like when we hunt, when we gather, the giving thanks, and that everything, that all the decisions I make has to be for my people too. But first for me is the land, because if there is no land, then there can be no people on the land.
Yeah. So
like to me that's what makes me Cree.
Okay.
Even if I don't, because I'm not very fluent in my language, like I know some, but after everything that has happened to Indigenous people and loss of language, and I think the definition of what it means to be Cree, it becomes very like blurred because of a lot of things that were taken away. So for me, myself, like finding, coming back to my community and discovering again, like my culture, my identity, the teachings that I got from my elders was that, they never shamed me for not speaking Cree, for not being able to speak my language. But it was all about, how I was out in the bush, how I was out at camp, how I felt about the land, how I felt about when we hunt for animals and all that. So, like for me, like it's following like the Cree values for me.
That totally makes sense.
Yeah. And it's not to say that even if somebody who's not Indigenous and then comes here and follows those, that makes them Cree. No.
Yeah.
Like obviously, you
like
gotta
you're a
be
good
Cree
person,
to
but
be Cree,
but yeah, you got to be Cree to be Cree.
Yeah.
No, I get that. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for explaining that. And it was good to hear. Could you say your Cree, like what you call?
We're Eeyou from. And we're on Eeyou Istchee.
Okay, yes, perfect.
So, yeah, Eeyou. There's like
Istchee.
they spell it a different ways, and for English, I think it's like I. Wait, I. No. Well, the other way is Eeyou.
Okay.
But then there's another way, which is more like with direct translation from the syllabics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
So Eeyou from. So like I'm Eeyou from Eeyou Istchee.
Eeyou from Eeyou Istchee.
That's how we say it.
I just wanted to hear it again because I just wanted to remember. I wanted to say it, but then I was like, wait, what was it again? Eeyou from Eeyou Istchee. Thank you.
Yeah, Eeyou from Eeyou Istchee.
Yeah. How you pronounce things?
One example for like talking about like non Cree coming in and like my grandmother is very much Abenaki. Like she's Abenaki.
Mm-hmm.
But when she came here to learn and to be with her husband, and then she had children, my uncle and my mother, she learned a lot of the Cree ways, but she never said that she was Cree. She's like, no, I'm Abenaki. You know, like because she is Abenaki, but she very much followed the Cree way of life. But then she has told me but the values are very similar to Abenaki. But she didn't grow up around Abenaki, because it's from around Three Rivers, and it was already pretty colonized already then. So she doesn't speak Abenaki either.
Okay.
So when she moved here, she did learn a lot of the Cree values and the Cree culture, but she has never said that she was Cree.
Yeah.
Because she's Abenaki, but she is the one who taught us everything, and my knowledge comes from my Abenaki grandmother who knows the Cree way of life.
I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, did you have something, Tone? Okay. I was just gonna ask, where is the Abenaki land?
Three Rivers around there, and Odanak. So, but that's where she's from, a reserve called Odanak.
So where is the Three Rivers?
It's in Quebec.
Okay.
It's I think I don't know how long of a drive it is, but it's near Montreal. That's
okay. That's okay.
We're down in the States.
We're not very well. Good, but no,
when
you say Montreal,
Montreal area, it's
okay.
I think it's a 3. I could be very wrong about the time.
Yeah.
But it's not that far from Montreal, because Montreal is native land, and then the Abenaki land is just outside of Montreal.
Okay. Cool.
I mean,
so it's a little
land.
reserve.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's a little reserve called. It's not little, because it also, I think it's connected to another town. I could be very wrong. I'm so bad with with names, but it's called Odanak, and I just know that it's really close to Three Rivers.
Okay, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little bit, but so we're gonna move on to our next question. But you did touch on this a little bit. But how do you navigate through this colonized space with your customs, language, traditions in mind, in order to succeed at
in your job,
your passion, your hobbies?
I didn't, like I said, I didn't grow up very much around my culture. We had moved to the city when I was very, very young, and I went to school there. So to come back, and I realized way later that I had a lot of colonized views, because I was in the city, about the way that I thought about my people, and the way that I thought about the education here, or what it is to be a successful person. So for my work, I really believe that I had to go to school. That was when I was in high school. I was to be successful, you have to go to school, you have to do this, you have to be fluent in English, fluent in this. And yet I was coming back to my community, and I don't people speak English, but they mostly speak Cree. So who was really successful?
If you
me coming back, not knowing my language, not even being able to provide for being able to communicate properly with my people. So it changed a lot after my last year of high school. I was a very angry teenager about a lot of stuff, about just how culture was being taught and how it was all, the language, and then me being I'm going to get out of this town, I'm going to go be successful. And so when I went to college, and then I dropped out and I came back, my views changed completely, because I realized that I was trying to be the good Indian, basically. That the only way to be a good Indian is to be the educated in Western knowledge Indian. And my people here, we're the furthest Cree community, so like a lot of stuff here didn't come right away, like for like colonization, I guess.
Oh, okay.
So that's like they said that Whapmagoostui is the one that still has the very old Cree, that we still speak the very old Cree.
Okay.
Like even our accent, they're like, "Wow, you're just like talking like the elders."
Oh.
And that a lot of the knowledge that we have too is the very old, like traditional, like ancestral knowledge Cree.
That's cool.
Because we don't have a access road. You can only come in by plane.
Oh, wow.
So like a lot of the stuff didn't reach until later on here. So I feel like, for me, like from my perspective, that a lot of stuff, it took its time so that we were able to see what was going on to the other communities for us to make decisions about what was best.
Yeah.
Like they, and I don't remember, I don't know what the years. Like I said, I'm very bad with dates and names. But they did. Hydro did try to come and dam the river here, and it had already been dammed in Chisasibi, and then in the other communities, like they were developing, and a lot of things were coming up that was like not for the land. And like there's a big dam in Chisasibi, and it did destroy a lot of land. It did destroy a lot of hunting grounds, and very, like it had a very big impact, a very negative impact too. But the communities developed. They got what they wanted, they needed for development. But because Whapmagoostui doesn't have its access road, we saw it and we were like, no. So they tried to come and dam the river here, but the people said no.
Good.
There was a lot of people that were for it, but
not enough.
The ones that weren't for it were the younger generation. So they said no because it was very much for the land. So Whapmagoostui, when you come here, it's very there. The river is there. It's untouched. It's the water is the river is very strong, and there are people who still want to develop, but there are ways to develop without causing more harm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like all that here, it becoming later. So like when I came back after dropping out of college, which was like 2015, I had my views for changed a lot, and the way that I thought about things, and I was also educating myself too on like what intergenerational trauma was, what my grandparents went through, what my father's side, my grandparents were very traditional too. Then they were always in the bush. I mean, I think most of my aunts and my uncles were born in the bush. So like I had those two views because my grandfather was born in the bush out on the land, but he got very sick and he had to go down south, and like he went to school. He became Grand Chief. He was chief of his community. So like I got a lot of perspective from him too. So I had a lot of different perspectives from a lot of things.
Cool.
So yeah, like so coming after high school, after college and coming back here, it changed, and the way that I thought about what it is to be Indigenous or what it is to be a successful Indigenous person changed, because I realized that I was happiest out on the land, and that I was happiest here.
And you don't
so
have
for me to be for me to be successful was to be successful in my own happiness with myself. And my happiest is when I'm making artwork. And that's for me. Like when people ask me, like, well, what can you say about other people, for other people to inspire? I'm like, do what you want to do. I wasn't going to be, even though my teachers told me, you should be a doctor, you should be a nurse. Like I got that a lot when I would tell them I wanted to be an artist. They were like, oh, like,
people
okay, thanks for the encouragement.
Wow. Well, I applaud you for following your passion, because it is really hard to do with all of the influence of, Western culture, or, whatever family members or whoever it is telling you to, be successful. But it's like in the Western standards, and
Yeah.
you don't have to follow that to be a successful person.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
And being indigenous and grow. I learned a lot more. Well, I'm 23. I'm still pretty young.
Yes, you are.
And
Yeah.
and still learning every day. And my views have changed from when I was 16 years old to now.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 16 years old, sometimes I'm like, oh my goodness, so embarrassing. I really thought that? No way. And but it's nice to see myself too growing, and then what we talked about earlier about what it means to be Cree to me,
mm-hmm.
and then decolonizing how
mm-hmm.
I think that what a successful person is in Western education, or for me coming back to my community and everybody speaks Cree here, but I know very little Cree.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew when I was maybe 14, 13 that I wanted to come back to Whapmagoostui. And coming back here and then living here, finishing high school, going back to college, and then coming back, and I was like, you know what? I think this is where I'm going to be.
Mm-hmm.
There's nowhere else for me to be where I can be successful anywhere, or
Mm-hmm.
I can do what I want to do anywhere.
Yeah.
And for me and my community, people will still, tell me it might be better if you move to the city. I'm like, why? I'm doing great here.
Yeah, and you can sell online, so you don't need people to take a plane.
Yeah,
to
so
get
it's fine.
you, so.
Very fortunately, very fortunately for me, I can work online. So in my field of work and what I do, it just makes more sense for me to be where I am the most happiest, and where I can get where the source of my inspiration is from.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for all your words. Those are just very inspiring and very I respect you for your decision and your ability to decolonize your thoughts about your Western perception that you grew up with, and reconnecting everything. So I applaud you. Because I imagine it's hard to do. I mean, maybe not. I guess when you kind of reconnect, you're like, this isn't even hard, I'm sure. Probably makes more sense once you start reconnecting. Mm-hmm. All right, I'll shut up now, Tony. What were you going to say?
I wasn't going to say anything.
Oh, okay. So. You had something to say, okay. Wait, I want to ask something real quick. Oh, what were you going to say? Okay. So something that I did want to ask you, because I really like your beat. This is kind of out of left field, but I really like the aesthetics of your beading style. A lot of the earrings that you do, they're not generally the normal, what you normally see what I normally see, I guess I shouldn't say everyone, but what I normally see in beadwork, beaded earrings. So, and they're kind of a lot of skulls, and you do have little, flowers and things. And, but where do you get your inspiration, or where did you get your inspiration to make kind of more I don't know, not to say gothic, but more, you know what I mean? More skulls and bones and things like that.
Right.
They're so cool.
Well, it goes back to Cree traditions too. For I'll talk about the bear skull, the bear skulls that I did.
Mm-hmm.
When you hunt bears, or when you hunt bears, you people, I don't know the full teachings of it, but I just know that you keep the skulls to put around your camp. So when you drive around here, you'll see a lot of folks in their camps, and they have bear skulls hanging on the trees.
Okay.
And one that I've heard is that it's to keep the bears away from your camp too, to kind of show that you're a hunter.
Yeah. Okay.
So you'll see the bear skulls hanging. So I've always been fascinated with animal bones, or just the skulls. I think they're just so amazing. It's just they've also they've given their life so that we can eat, so that we can live. And for me, my teaching is that when you hunt and you eat, you don't throw the bones in the garbage. You go put them back out on the land, because then it'll go back into the land.
Mm.
And that's like a form of like respect towards the animal. And I've always been very fascinated like with it. We also have the like for the fringe on the skulls. It's for when you hunt. I don't exactly know, but if it's this, but I think it's your first goose, your first spring goose. You bead the head of the goose through they'll have like fringe out of their eyes. And I'm not really sure where you put it. I think it differs from family or teaching, but it's so that you have a good spring hunt. Like, so you have a good goose hunt, and to show like the honor of the animal.
Okay.
So like a lot of that for some of my earrings too, is like, I always think about, like wearing it, and for people, it can mean very many different things, which is fine with me. But for me, like, that's where the inspiration came from.
Cool.
But I didn't exactly replicate it, because it doesn't look like that when you actually do it for the animal.
Yeah.
So like, that inspiration came from, and like, so, and I'm like, I'm very into the culture, but then I'm also very into pop culture.
Okay.
Yeah.
My favorite movies are horror movies.
Yeah.
Like, I love like all the like Tim Burton. My favorite movie that like for the magical stuff was Pan's Labyrinth.
Oh,
Like,
I
I just
love
like,
that movie.
there's a lot of movies that I get influenced also by from the storytelling, and just like the aesthetic of movies too. So like, even though like I get very much inspired from my culture, I very much get inspired by a lot of pop culture too.
Yeah.
So like, I had done a patch of beadwork from like Loser Lover, and that was from like It.
Oh, okay.
And so like, like a lot of that too. But a lot of like my florals or my berries or anything that is very like you'll notice like a pattern with the land-based stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
sense.
skulls, the berries, the flowers. I do a lot of that, and that's for me, because like I see that every day. I see the berries, I see the skulls.
The caribou prints.
Well,
right?
I've never seen a human skull, but
but you've seen it in movies.
Yeah, but I see it in movies, so
Yeah, they're all. I like your style. It's super cool and like different.
And for like the for the beadwork that we see often too, for like indigenous beaders especially, I just couldn't. I couldn't connect to the patterns, because they're also not patterns from where I'm from.
Okay, yeah.
Like the indigenous
more
patterns
Western
that
kind of.
people seem. Yeah, the ones that people will say that's like indigenous. I try my very best to not make anything that is from another, or not from my teachings.
Okay.
So, or not from teachings that I've been given.
Yeah.
So I try my very best to make sure that it's like all like Cree from where I'm from.
Yeah.
And I didn't learn beading from like, it wasn't something that my family taught me. It was a friend that taught me. And then I'm self-taught, so like my patterns and my designs are all me, and I try my best to again just keep it inspired, not a replica, but inspired by the traditional patterns in from over here.
Okay.
And yeah, so I'm even though my work to me doesn't look very indigenous, I guess, the indigenous style, or how, however people put it in, I didn't want to categorize myself into that. And it wasn't because it was anything bad, or that it's anything that like I didn't like. It's just that I didn't want to connect. I couldn't connect to it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't something that I was taught.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, even when people ask me if I could do a certain pattern, I'm like, I can't do that. I don't know anything about this pattern. I can't.
You don't
I
want
can't
to
do
like
it.
misrepresent it, kind of, or do
Yeah.
and you
I
just
don't
don't
want them
connect
to
to it.
think
So
like, oh, you're from here, and it's like a pattern that's not even like that. That's from another
yeah,
tribe or culture, and I'm like, I can't do it.
yeah, you feel like you're like
So
appropriating it or something.
So like I try to keep it everything that I've seen in my life. So
Okay.
the skulls, the berries, and then from like movies.
Yeah. We gotta throw the pop culture in there.
Yeah.
I love your style, and thank you for explaining that. It makes sense completely. So I guess we could go into the our last question, I guess.
All right.
So just your final thoughts. What do you wish to let our audience know? And it could be, our Indigenous audience or the non-Indigenous listeners about your, tribe or community, or like just what, in general, what final thoughts do you have to leave us with?
Sorry, repeat it?
Oh, just like what final thoughts do you have that you want to leave our audience with? Whether it's you're talking to our non-Indigenous or our Indigenous audience, or just,
both.
Or both. And it could be about, about your tribe or community, or just, anything you want to remind people of, or just your summary.
Oh.
If that makes sense. Just
Yeah. I don't I don't know.
It's fine.
I think I've said a lot.
Yeah, you have said a lot. Completely, you really have. I just, we just like to ask that, as like a kind of just if there was something we missed, maybe, or whatever. Like if there's something you wanted to get off your chest or anything. But yeah, you explained a lot, and you gave us me and the audience, I'm sure, and probably Tony, a lot of insight and information that we didn't know. So thank you very much, Sage, or Nalakwsis.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Do you have anything to say, Tone?
Not
or
yet.
Kikisis? I'm so bad.
You said a lot, and it was great information. There was a lot of points in there that I would dive deeper into.
If we had the time,
if we had the time, yeah.
Maybe we'll have to have you back on.
Yeah,
if you want to.
There's a lot of points that I think that people who are listening should look up and do their research. We
always want to encourage more research on the audience's end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do. So, well, thank you so much for being on our podcast. All
right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah. So, we'll. I guess we can stop recording now, Tone.
Yeah, we're gonna stop recording now.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for listening to the episode. Hope you learned a lot. We learned a lot. Hope you had fun. We had fun. So please check out our website at www.asmudgeforyourthoughts if you want to get more info. From there, you could find us on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. And if you or anyone you know would like to be on the podcast, please fill out our simple form, which could be found on our website, or email us at contact@asmudgeforyourthoughts.com. We'd like to thank Mary Kay for designing our logo, and 8th Generation for the backdrop that we have. They did not provide this to us. We just like them because they are inspired natives and not native inspired. And we'd also like to thank Okimauki Hugh, the late Roddy Sunchild Sr., for our words in our intro. He gave me these words whenever I was just a young lad, and he was just telling me some words to live by. So yeah.
All right, with that, Gigawabaman.
See you later.